Yes, I've had lots of experience with different types of beings that people call aliens. First of all, I'd like people to know that every single one of those is a part of Satan's spiritual hierarchy, which is Lucifer's spiritual hierarchy, same thing. They're anti-God, anti-Jesus Christ, anti-us. They work through people. They work through demonic spirits. They work through hybrid beings to orchestrate the plan of Satan, which is to not only take over our planet, but to use us and rule us and bring destruction. It involves our military around the world. It involves the plan back when I was talking about when they were trying to change post-World War II into what we have now, take people away from the Judeo-Christian values and morality into thinking anything goes. And actually, the goal is to be in agreement with Satan and what Satan wants, even though many people don't believe in Satan, but they're still in agreement with what Satan wants. Satan needs to use people in order to get stuff done because humans have dominion and authority that those beings do not have. It's a spiritual law. That's why they use us. One of the attack plans to get going on changing people's outlook on the Bible and to get people more in line with Satan's plan was, number one, they were going to do several things at once. One was to increase UFO phenomena. At one point, the governments would be saying that it doesn't exist. On the other hand, they were going to increase the UFO, the people seeing UFOs. More people were going to be abducted, and this was to get people to. One of the reasons was to get people to think outside of the box, to start looking in physics, which would lead them into metaphysics, they would also at the same time, another part of the plan was to be teaching Darwinism in school from elementary school on up, pushing Darwinism, which is evolution, because Satan's plan is based on the lie of evolution, spiritual evolution, physical evolution, and that it's spiritual evolution that pushes the physical evolution. That's a lie, but that's what Satan's plan is. That's such a diabolical lie. So the part is, if they're introducing the UFO phenomena and also the thought that there's highly evolved beings that have technology that we don't have, that some of them are going to talk to us and show us the way, then it's going to take us away from the Bible. It's going to get us to follow them. So at the same time, church infiltration. It's also to send in the people like what my mother was doing and to get people to buy into the metaphysics. It's to tell people that they're more highly evolved, that they can understand better the higher teachings. They aren't higher teachings. They're lies. Okay, so if you want to study physics. But the fact is that the metaphysics that are being pushed are, and through churches, are from the pit of hell, so to speak. They're from Satan himself. And that is part of the plan to get people away from Jesus Christ and the truth, who is Jesus Christ.
Thought of visitors from another planet would give a lot of folks the willies.
Yeah, one man says it's been happening and that the government, specifically NASA, knows about it.
The President Truman at that time convened a very high-level committee to examine this alien or UFO phenomenon. They did come to the conclusion that it was alien, and the military rightly came to the conclusion, if they're hostile, there's nothing we can do about it. Therefore, their choice was to deny it and to hush it up.
The powers to be are setting us up for disclosure and making it more subtle so that it isn't a big jolt to us.
Clifford Cliff is the worldwide director of MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. They have some 1,000 investigators. One of their latest investigations has to do with this video from January 28th of this year. A mysterious light is seen descending from the sky in Jerusalem. Multiple videos have surfaced of the supposed event. They all show the light hovering above the Dome of the Rock. After a few seconds, there appears to be some sort of energy burst. And then the light
eventually it
fades
came
away.
away from the fear, I believe, of not being able to protect and do their duty to the notion of power and control, controlling the knowledge and the technology. And the group involved with that is still doing it. We have created our reality here, and we have created it right now rather badly, for it's not a sustainable reality. We have created, with our science and technology, instead of using it for the greater good, it's been captured by interest, greed, self-service, which is rife. And instead of using it, all of our technology and our brilliance and genius for greater good, we use it for self-service. And that's not going to work.
They do have a significant amount of information about the UFO phenomenon and ETs that they have not disclosed that are still there. Some of the astronauts have come forward now and are indicating that they have seen and witnessed things that were beyond
Small
their
saucer
explanation.
flew overhead and put down some landing gear and landed out on the dry lake bed, only about 50 yards
But if an
out.
extraterrestrial intelligence is already visiting Earth, how long have they been here? What does the military really know about aliens?
There's just no question but that information on this topic has been kept from the public.
One of the things I wanted to point out to you before we get going, something strange did happen in space. It was the opportunity to see the universe and see the world from a different perspective. They say travel broadens. Getting on a mountaintop broadens, it gives you a different point of view. Well, being able to look at Earth from an ET perspective was pretty wow. Let me tell you a little bit about it because it did get this whole thing started with me. It was the peak experience, the eureka experience, an epiphany that made me realize I had to change the way I was thinking.
Okay, so most of you are probably already familiar with astronaut Edgar Mitchell and all the associations he's had with the UFO disclosure narrative over the years, and even last year he was connected to a couple of the Podesta emails from WikiLeaks and things like that. And I was familiar with that stuff too, but I guess I didn't really notice until now that I've been doing all this research dealing with the quantum mysticism aspect. Maybe I just didn't notice it before, but all of his stuff having to do with the Noetic, the Institute for Noetic Sciences and everything, which is this new age psychic research he's been doing since 1973. I mean, shortly after he supposedly walked on the moon, he left NASA and got right into all this new age propaganda. And of course, when you hear him tell his story, he always says that it was this like eureka. He actually describes it as a mystical experience that he had on the way back to the Earth. Where he realized that everything was connected and it was all, everything was one, and that he had to go, explore the mysteries of what he was feeling. But of course, as most of you know, he was already a Freemason before going to the moon, and a member of the Order of Demolay, so two occult societies there. So for him to claim that he was just this left-brained, cold scientific thinker is basically just as much of an outright lie as is the claim that he walked on the moon. So the whole thing really serves as this springboard into all the rest of the work that he did in conjunction with all the other, UFO conspiracy lore that, that permeated since, and even in Hollywood and everything else, and he's just a part of that narrative. But of course, the New Age side is very much ties into the whole quantum mysticism. He actually talks about this. This is actually this big lecture that he gave on the quantum hologram idea. He's talking about remote viewing and psychic abilities and mysticism, and, it's just the same old crap. And it's interesting because I just went back and was listening to some old interviews with Carolyn Hamlett, and again, I probably had never noticed before when she was talking about the metaphysics and how the UFO and alien thing ties into the push for the metaphysics, which is just the same old occultism and witchcraft, but being packaged as science. And it's all the same, all these things are interwoven, and so it really brings you to the point where the only way you're going to understand fully how all these agendas are really part of one agenda, how they all tie in together, the aliens, the quantum deception, the fake NASA everything, the fake space, is if you understand the spiritual side, the satanic agenda. And I was just going to close with some clips from this really great documentary I found recently on the whole conspiracy involving the New Age movement and its foundations with Theosophy and all that. And if you don't understand Theosophy, then you really don't understand what Freemasonry is all about, what the alien agenda is all about, the quantum mysticism, everything. It's all, you have to understand the occult connections behind it at all. So here we go.
The founding of the New Age movement can be traced right back to the 19th century through Theosophy. Theosophy is the group that popularized the belief that we are moving out of the age of Pisces into the astrological age of Aquarius, which to them is an age of the unity of humanity, an age of enlightenment, an age of heightened spiritual consciousness. Now, Blavatsky's influence came from her writings. Her first book was entitled Isis Unveiled, and was published in 1877. She then started a magazine called Lucifer Magazine. Her principal work, The Secret Doctrine, was then published in 1888. She then wrote The Key to Theosophy and then The Voice of Silence. These works are now famous, or infamous depending on which viewpoint you're coming from, and contained in these writings are the doctrines that helped mold the New Age movement into what it is today. Blavatsky claims that the contents of her book, The Secret Doctrine, was channeled to her through an ascended master or highly evolved being called Cthulhu, who spoke to her. Belief in these ascended masters, who communicate with humanity, is a crucial concept when studying the New Age, and we'll explore this doctrine later on. As we expose the origins of the modern New World Order and New Age doctrines, it's important to note the role of Freemasonry in all this. As already mentioned, Theosophy and Freemasonry were somewhat affiliated in the late 19th century. In fact, Blavatsky received an honorary degree of Apprentice Companion, Perfect Mistress, Sublime Elect Scots Lady from the Rite of Adoption. She was awarded with these titles by 33-degree Freemasons. Now, as far back as 1917, people were already recognizing the relationship between Freemasonry and Theosophy. Freemasonry viewed doctrinally is in fact Theosophy. Now I'm going to quote Alice Bailey, and she says, "The new era is coming. The new ideals, the new civilization, the new modes of life, of education, of religious presentation, and of government are slowly precipitating, and nothing can stop them." End of quote. I'm going to quote from N. Sri Ram, who says, quote, "Let us first consider the restoration of the mysteries. It is well known among members of the Masonic movement that its work has been faithfully continued up to the present, and that its numbers of lodges have steadily increased. I imagine that at such an auspicious time, when the inner and outer worlds will have come much nearer together, some of the great leaders of the hierarchy might take part in the outer work of reconstruction, and will then become the recognized leaders of the new world government." End of quote. The hierarchy he refers to is not humans. He's referring to spirit beings, what is claimed to be a spiritual hierarchy of ascended masters who have this great intellect and wisdom, and these are people who or spiritual entities who it is claimed are very highly evolved in every single way, and of course including spiritually, and they're going to become infused or integrated with the leaders of the New World Order or the New World Government. So here we have the concept of hybrid humans, which are a fusion of spiritual entities and humans.
Yes, I've had lots of experience with different types of beings that people call aliens. First of all, I'd like people to know that every single one of those is a part of Satan's spiritual hierarchy, which is Lucifer's spiritual hierarchy, same thing. They're anti-God, anti-Jesus Christ, anti-us, that it doesn't exist. On the other hand, they were going to increase the UFO, the people seeing UFOs. There people were going to be more people were going to be abducted, and this was to get people to. One of the reasons was to get people to think outside of the box, to start looking in physics, which would lead them into metaphysics, they would also at the same time, another part of the plan was they work through people, they work through demonic spirits, they work through hybrid beings to orchestrate the plan of Satan, which is to not only take over our planet, but to use us and rule us and bring destruction. It involves our military around the world. It involves the plan back when I was talking about when they're dominion and authority that those beings do not have. It's a spiritual law. That's why they use us. One of the attack plans to get going on changing people's outlook on the Bible and to get people more in line with Satan's plan was, number one, they were going to do several things at once. One was to increase UFO phenomena. At one point, the governments would be saying they were trying to change post-World War II into what we have now, take people away from the Judeo-Christian values and morality into thinking anything goes. And actually, the goal is to be in agreement with Satan and what Satan wants, even though many people don't believe in Satan, but they're still in agreement with what Satan wants. Satan needs to use people in order to get stuff done because humans have